Okay, so a while ago I made a video where you need a key in order to open a door, and I was just hanging around on the Discord, and someone asked how they could do like free collectibles in order to open the door instead of just one. So let's create our system. But to do that, first we'll need a door. I'd also like to have, say, a key. Actually, no, let's go for like coins into a slot that opens a door. Okay, so cue the montage of me making some assets because I didn't do that beforehand. Okay, so anyways, the idea is that we need free coins in order for this door to be able to be opened up. Awesome. So what we need to do is we need to make it so that whenever this coin enters that, it opens the door. Okay, now in the previous video where you had to insert a key into a slot, I put all the logic on the slot. Now, this makes a ton of sense for simplicity of the tutorial, however, it's not that dynamic. For example, here I've got a coin and it would go into the slot, and that would work totally fine because that was the intention of the tutorial. However, if I instead wanted to make it so whenever you click a coin, the coin tells the slot that a coin had been inserted, you would use two scripts, one on the coin and one on the slot, and that is entirely what I plan to do here. So we need two things here. First, we're going to just move the coin over here. We need to add a pickup script and make this pick-upable. So let's hide that and go add component. First, I want to create something for us to hit. So let's just create a mesh collider. And I'm going to make this convex and is trigger so that we don't interact with it too much. I'm then going to give it a pickup script, which will give us a rigid body, to which I'm going to disable gravity and make it is kinematic, so it'll just float in the air. This makes it a lot more convenient for VR users. It means you won't drop it and have to bend down and grab it. I'm also going to come down and go auto hold, and I'm just going to make this to yes to make it a bit more comfortable for our desktop users. And last but not least, we need to create an Udon script to go onto this coin that will keep track of whether or not it has been collected. So now that we've got this Udon behavior script, I just want to come into my project window. I'm just going to create a folder for all my asset stuff. So now this is a bit cleaner. Then I want to come over here and we're going to create VRChat Udon. And we want to go create VRChat Udon graph program asset. Dang it. And I just want to call this pickup. This will go onto our coin, so we're going to reselect our coin. And we'll come down here, and I want to place our pickup script into the Udon behavior component, and then we're going to open up the Udon graph. Okay, so now this coin needs to keep track of a couple of things, but the main thing it needs to keep track of is whether or not the coin has been collected. So in the variables tab, I'm just going to create a bool, and I'm going to call this is collected. For now, we don't have to worry about whether or not it's public or not. However, we do want to grab it and hold down Alt to get a node that will play whenever this value changes. However, how can this value be changed? Well, it should only be changed whenever we put it into the slot. The only way you can put it into the slot is if we collide with the coin slot. So we need to check for that. First of all, in order to do a collision, or more importantly, a trigger, because this is set to a trigger. So whenever this trigger hits something, we need to check whether or not this is coin slot. And if it is the coin slot, then we need to tell the coin slot that we got collected. So I want to come in here, and I'm just going to create an event on trigger enter node. Then on this collider, we want to use a collider get game object, because we want to get the game object that we collided with. Now I want to check whether or not this game object is the object that we collided with, to which I've realized I forgot. I want to make the coin a child of the coin slot, and this means that we can check whether or not the object we collided with is the parent object, instead of having to store the coin slot. Anyways, on the Udon graph, we want to check whether or not the game object we hit is our parent object. So in order to get our parent object, we want to use a transform get parent node. However, this is a transform variable, so we want to then do a transform get game object variable. So now we'll grab the game object of our parent. So for in our case, our coin will grab the coin slot transform, and then it will grab its game object, which includes the name as well as this name, and we can check whether or not they are the same. To do that, we could check the name, but we don't actually need to check the name because it's the same object. So we can just use a game object equals node, and if these two values equal each other, we know that we have the same object. If we have the same object, we know that we have collided with our coin slot, and we now need to do our logic. So we can just grab a branch node here, and if these do indeed equal the same, we come out of the true node, and now we want to change is collected by holding down control, and we want to set is collected variable. We then want to use a bool constant node, so we can set what the value is, to which we want to be true, and then we want to go send change in order for this event to play. If we don't hit send change, this won't play for the local player, and because none of this is networked, it will play for literally no one. Okay, so now whenever it notices this value has changed, we need to tell it the script that manages how many coins are collected that we just collected it. However, we haven't actually created that yet, so why don't we do that? Coming back to our scene, we want to come to our coin slot object itself. First of all, we need some way of colliding with this, so let's just create that first. Honestly, I can just use the box collider here. It's a very boxy shape. Make is trigger equal true, and then we're going to go add component, and I want to create an Udon behavior component. This Udon behavior component will be our manager script, which is different to our pickup script. So let's create a new Udon graph program, and I'm going to call this coin slot manager. I'm now going to come back to our coin slot. I'm going to drag and drop that into our Udon behavior component, and then I'm going to open up the Udon graph. Okay, so now we're in script number 2, our coin slot manager. Our coin slot manager needs to keep track of how many coins we have collected. When it knows how many coins we've collected, we need it to open a door. How about we just make the door disappear to begin with, and then let's focus on making it actually animate properly. So, into the variables tab, we need to keep track of how many coins we've collected, and to do that, we want to use an int variable. This is a number that doesn't have a decimal point, which is great for counting stuff as it's an absolute. Anyways, I'm going to call this coins collected. In fact, actually, that could just be pickups collected, just to make things a bit more clean. So, to do this, I'm going to create an event. It's going to be a custom event, that is, and I'm going to call this add1, aka add 1 coin to our thing. Then we want to, whenever we have this happen, we want to grab our pickups collected, and we just want to do an int addition node, and we want to add 1 to our pickup. So now whenever the coin gets interacted, we want it to play this event, and whenever this event is played, it will grab our pickups number, it will add 1 to it, and then set that as the new value. However, we also want to send change, make sure that it's checkmarked, because we want to once again use an event that gets called whenever this value changes. Now, whenever this gets called, we want to tell the door to open. However, we only want it to open when a certain amount of coins have been collected. In fact, we should make that a variable that we can change later on. So we're going to call this minimum coins collected. Or target pickups, just to shorten the name, because you don't really want these to be too long. We'll make this public so we're able to see it inside the inspector and change it later on. And so we're just going to grab our pickups collected, and we want to put that into an int greater than or equal node. And so now when pickups creator is greater than or equal to target pickups, this bool will be true. And so we can put that into a branch node. And like I said before, we're just going to make the door disappear to begin with. So I'm just going to come over here and create a game object. And this is a target door. Make this public so we're able to select inside the inspector. Then we drag this in, and we're going to use a game object, set active node. And with the value slot set to 0, this will mean that whenever this node is called, it will turn off our game object. So now in summary, as I finally full screen this, whenever this event is called, it'll grab 1 to our pickups collected int variable up here. Then whenever this variable changes, it will call this event. And actually, we could just plug this in here. Oh, that looks so good. Anyways, so now whenever that variable changes, it will play this event. When that event gets called, it will check if that's greater than or equal to the target pickups we want to do. And if so, it will turn off our door. And once again, remember, we're going to actually make the door open later on, but we don't need to worry about that right now. Anyways, I'm going to hit compile. Then I want to grab the name of this custom event. I want to come back into our pickup script, because we still have to get this to work. So now whenever is collected equals true, we know that the object that we collided with is the parent. And what we need to do is we need to grab the variables from the parent. So I'm just going to copy and paste this down here. And now what we need to do is from this coin, we need to grab the parent's Udon behavior. So in order to do that, actually we don't need the game object. We can do it from the transform as well. So we want to use a transform get component node. And this will allow us to get a component from our parent game object. Why did you do that, Udon? And then I want to go to string and change this to type, because this is easier. And then we want to use a type Udon behavior node and plug that into this get component. This will mean that it'll be able to find the Udon behavior component that is on our parent game object. So now we don't really need to do this, but I feel like we should. Let's use an isVal node just to make sure that this actually succeeded in collecting the Udon behavior. We then want to use a branch node, and we just want to make sure that the is collected bool is actually true. This is just a nice little check that we can do here. Anyway, so now that we have our Udon behavior component, we want to tell it to send an event. So we want to use an Udon behavior send custom event node. We want to plug our component into the instance slot. And as for the event name, we need to tell it the name. So we just want to use a string constant node. And we want to give it the name of the event that we want it to call, which is add1 in our case. So we can put that into our string constant node and plug that into the event name. And so now, whenever our coins triggers enters a trigger or collider, it will check to see whether or not that game object it collided with is our parent game object. If it is our parent game object, it will set is collected to equal true. Then when the game sees that is collected equals true, it will play this node down here. It will check to see whether or not the bool is true. And if it is true, it will then come down here and try and grab an Udon behavior from our parent game object. It will then check to see if it successfully managed to find an Udon behavior on that game object. And if it does, it will then send an event add1 to that Udon behavior script. That Udon behavior script is our coin slot manager, and so the event will play add1, and this will add 1 to our pickup collected, and then whenever it sees this int has changed, it will play this node here. It will check to see whether or not the amount of pickups we have collected is more than our target pickups int, and if so, it will tell our door to turn off. So if I hit compile on both scripts and come back into our scene, now we need to give it some values, so I'm going to make target pickups equal 1. I'm going to give it the door object that we're going to turn off. and then our coin itself doesn't need any variables. So now if I was to playtest this, we can see that I start the game outside the room. But luckily we can just walk through the walls because I haven't given the collision. Anyway, so now I can grab this coin and I can put it into this way too high slot, and we see the door opened, or at least disappeared. Awesome! Okay, so we saw all that worked. However, you may have noticed two things about the coin. First of all, we kept holding it, and second of all, we could keep seeing it. Both of which doesn't really match the fact that we put it into the slot. So let's come back to our Udon behavior pickup script, and we need to make it so that whenever we click the object, it turns off. So we should really start with the ball down here. If it has successfully managed to find the Udon behavior component and send it, we then wanted to tell it to first drop the pickup, and second of all, let's turn off the coin. That gets a bit more annoying with networking, but we'll get to that when we get to that. So let's first create a block node. This block node will just make things a little bit cleaner. And then I want to use a game object set active node, which will tell us to turn this off. However, before we turn it off, I should not get ahead of myself, we should use a pickup drop node. However, we need to get the pickup script that's on this object. And you know how we get that? Well, it's by doing the same thing we did over here. So we want to use a transform get component node. A game object get component node would do the same thing. Then we want to use a type VRC to get into this menu, and then we want to grab a type VRC pickup. Then we can just plug the component into our pickup script so it knows what pickup component we're meant to drop. So now once it fires this event, it will come over to the block node and play the first arrow first, and this will grab a pickup from our object and tell it to drop. It will then tell our game object to turn off so we don't have to see it anymore. So if we hit compile and come back into our scene and playtest this, we can now come over here, grab our coin, and when we put it into the slot, we see the coin disappear as well as the door opening. Awesome! I should actually show that multiple coins work in this case. So if I create free duplicate coins, I then want to go to my coin slot and I want to tell it to wait for free target pickups. Now when we hit play, I can come over here and pick up my coin, put it in, but the door didn't open, but it did steal my coin. So let me put the second coin in. Still doesn't want to open the door, but if I put my third coin in, we see that the door opened as all 3 coins were put in. Something else we can do is on our coin slot, if we made this a variable of 2, now when we hit play, we'll see that when we put 1 coin in, it once again doesn't accept it, but when we put the second coin in, we see the door open and we still got a coin remaining that we can run away with. Awesome. Okay, first of all, we should make the door open. That's like 101. So let's come in here, let's select the door, and then we come to the animation tab. If you don't have an animation tab, just go Control 6, which is the shortcut, and then you can just park that wherever you want. Now that you've got the animation tab open, we want to select the object, and we want to click here to go create to create an animation. Now we can see a folder as to where it's going to go. I'm just going to put this in the same folder as everything else, and I'm going to call this animation door open. Now this animation is going to be super simple. I'm going to hit the record button. I'm then going to come to my arrows here. I'm just going to hold down Control, and I'm just going to give this a wiggle to record its location. Then I'm going to come over to the 30-second mark, and then I'm just going to open this up. So now we should have an animation of the door opening. Wow, that is quick. I did not expect it to be that quick. Let's go to the 1 second mark. Yeah, that's a much better opening speed. Awesome. Okay, so now that we have our animation, we need to control that animation. So when I come into the animator, I'm just going to double click on its controller, and this will open up the controller for the animator. Now, in every other video where I've done door opening and whatnot, I've used the parameter tab to create parameters to set up this door. I'm not going to do that this time, and I'm going to show you another way that we can do this. So first of all, we want to just create an empty state for our animator, and I'm going to right click and set this as default state. Now we have our door open animation, and I'm just going to call this open door because I want to show a very important distinction. We will want to record this name later. Then the last thing I need to do is just, this animation isn't meant to loop, and so I do need to come into the project window and find that animation, which is nice and easy for me to find, and we just want to disable loop time so that the animation doesn't loop. Now I want to come back to our door, and if we hit play, because we're currently playing the new state, or the empty state that we created, we'll see that the door is closed. However, if I was to come over here, and I hit jump to state, we'll see that the door has opened. And so all we need to do in our Udon graph is tell it to jump to the state when we want to open up the door. Okay, so if I was to stop playing, I'm going to come to my coin slot, and I want to open up the Udon graph. Now, instead of targeting this door and telling it to just deactivate, we want it to open up. And in order to do that, instead of a game object variable here for target door, we instead want an animator variable, and I'm just going to call this anim for short. I'm going to make this public so we're able to select inside the inspector, and then I want to drag and drop it in. And then I want to use an animator play node. Now this node's really cool, and I admittedly only learnt about it relatively recently, but it allows you to jump to a certain state in the animator. So currently we're in the empty state, and then if we tell it to play open door, to which I'm just going to copy its name here, we can then tell it whenever this node is played to jump to this other state, despite the fact there is no connection whatsoever. This is used extensively in sprite art based games, like 2D pixel games, and it is super useful to know about, and it can be really useful if all you need to do is just turn it on. However, if you play around with VRChat avatars, you will need to use tools and whatnot, which is why it took me so long to learn. Anyways, now that we've made this little change to our Udon graph, we do want to make sure we hit compile, just because it might not save otherwise. Okay, and before we go on, something that I missed when recording is that we want to disable the collider so that it can no longer take any more coins. To do that, we simply want to get the collider that's on this object, and to do that, I'm going to use a transform get component node. I'm going to change it from string to type, then I'm going to use a type collider, and I'm going to plug that in. And then I want to put that into a collider set enable node. And what this will do is simply, whenever this node is called, it will look at our object and grab the collider that's on it and disable the collider, just so it can no longer steal any more coins. Okay, so yep, now get back to the video. And then we want to come into our scene, we want to click on our coin slot, and now it needs to know the animator that's on our door, so I'm just going to give it our door object, and then we want to hit play. By the way, we've still got it set up so it only requires 2 coins. Just letting you know. Anyway, so now I can grab this coin, I can put it in, and it ate my coin, but the door didn't open. But now when I put the second coin in, we can see the door open. Woohoo! Let's keep going! Okay, so now the door looks really nice, but the coins still kind of just disappear. How can we make this look a bit better? So now the way I did this last time is that I had the key and I made it activate a fake key that then got inserted in as part of the animation. However, in our case, what happens if the coin gets inserted and then a second coin gets inserted in very quick succession? Well, the animation will reset, or it just won't play the second time. Or it'll play it really delayed. Those are the 3 ways you can do it, because you can only have one animation playing at a time. I guess if you had multiple coins, you could kind of tiptoe in between them, but that's just way too complicated. There's no need to go that hard. Instead, what I want to do is I want to spawn in a new coin that just nicely slots in as an animation and then deletes itself so we don't have to worry about it anymore. So this will be a fake coin that plays an animation and then dies. Honestly, this will mean that you can spam the coins in together and whatnot, and they'll all just nicely follow each other in, which I think would look really cool, despite you probably never noticing it. So let's begin. So first of all, I'm just going to create an empty game object that is a child of the coin slot, and this will be like a way of grounding the coin in its location. Because what I want to do is I want to spawn in the coin and then just make it the exact same position and rotation as our coin slot. This means that the coin will always have the same orientation, which is going to be very useful. Now I just want to reset the coin to be at the center point, and now it's time to create our animation. So I'm going to come into our animation tab, and on our game object component, which I'm going to call coin insert visuals, I'm going to come over here, have that selected, and then I'm going to create an animation clip, and I'm going to call this coin insert. Now for this animation, I'm going to select our coin, which I'm just going to rename as coin temp. On this coin itself, we do actually need to get rid of some stuff. So we just want to remove its pickup script, its Udon behavior script, basically anything other than the mesh render and mesh filter. So now this is a pure visual coin and it's completely non-interactive. So now we want to hit the record button, and the place I want this to end up after a second is in this location. So I'm going to drag it over here and I'm just going to put it into the slot. It'll be something like this. Also at the very beginning, I'm just going to make this linear on both of them actually. So this will make it a very smooth entry. Now, bear in mind, I'm not much of an artist. I much prefer playing around with Udon and getting that stuff to work. I do want to make this coin rotate. That looks like it will do. This is nothing precise, obviously. I mean, my visuals don't exactly indicate that I know exactly what I'm doing here. But anyways, that should be up to do what we need to do. So, and now I'm running out of time to record this. I'm going to come back to my project. I'm going to click on my coin insert and just disable loop time because we don't want that to play. Now on our animator, we can see in here that this will play immediately when the game begins, which is good, that's what we want. Second of all, we just need to make sure that this disappears after it gets enabled. So we're going to go add component, and I'm going to create an Udon behavior component. I'm going to give it a script, and I'm going to call this destroy object after spawn. I'm going to open up the Udon graph. Then in here, I'm going to use an event on enable node, and then I'm going to use a unity destroy node. However, I want this to destroy after a period of time, so I'm going to use object and float. Now, we can't actually leave this object blank, so we do want to use a constant this, which is just the object that this is attached to, and then we've got a timer for how long this object should stick around for. I'm going to say 1 second, which is actually beyond the amount of time for our coin. So that should work. Now I want to come back into our coin insert. I want to give it the coin destroy after spawn. And this will mean that whenever this gets added in, it will get destroyed after a while. Now we want to make this a prefab, so we can just spawn this in whenever we need it. So I'm going to grab our coin insert and drag and drop it into a blank part of our project scene, and then we'll create that as a prefab. So now we can delete this. So what I want to do is I want to come into our Udon graph. I just want to reopen my pickup script. I want to give it a GameObject variable, and this is going to be coin visuals. I'm just going to make this public so we can see it inside the inspector. Then whenever it successfully spawns it in, I want to spawn in this object and give it the same location. So to do that, we want to use an instantiate node, because VRChat's like that. I then want to grab this game object, and I want to grab its transform, because we want to change its position. Then I want to use a transform set position and rotation node. We want to give it this into the instance slot, and then for its position, we actually want to grab that from the parent. So let's grab this parent node. Let me full screen so you can see better. So we're going to grab this transform get parent node, and on this transform, we're going to use a transform get position and a transform get rotation, and I want to plug that into the 2 slots. And so now it will instantiate this object, and after it has spawned in this new object, then we'll tell it to disable and whatnot. So now whenever this ball changes, we will check whether or not we've got an Udon behavior on the parent game object, and if so, we'll tell it to play this event. Then we're going to spawn in this coin visual game object. We're going to get its transform and set its transform to be at the same position as the parent, same position and rotation that is, and then we're going to turn off the game object as well as drop the pickup so that we're no longer holding it, which is just to get around a VRChat glitch. Anyways, so now that we're in the scene, then I want to click on our coin. I just want to give it our coin insert visuals prefab that we created. I then want to apply that to my other objects. So I'm just going to copy component, select the other 2, and then paste component values. And so now each coin has the prefab in it. And now when we hit play, we can see that when we pick up the object and put it in, we can see it play the animation of the coin going in. And if we look closely on the hierarchy, you'll see that when I put this in, it spawns in an object and then disappears. And that is very satisfying. Awesome, so that's how you can do a simple door open animation. Now we just need to make this networked. So first of all, on each coin, I'm going to go add component. I want to create an object seek component. This will just sync the position of the coin. Also, we don't want to allow collision ownership because there's just no point doing that. Then on the Udon graph, whenever this coin is collected, instead of deleting the object, because we can't do that, otherwise it will just destroy its syncing, we need to do 2 things. First, we need to make it so the player can no longer see the coin, and second of all, we need to make it so we can no longer pick it up. So in order to make it invisible, we want to use a mesh renderer set enable node, and we want to set this to be disabled. However, we need to tell our mesh renderer, so we just want to grab another get component and copy this down. And then on this transform get component node, we just want to use a type mesh renderer and plug that in. And so now this will find the mesh renderer and set that to be disabled. Okay, second of all, what we need to do is we need to make it so we can no longer pick up the object. And to do that, we're going to use a pickup set pickupable, and we want to set this to be false. Now we've already got the pickup script here, so I'm just going to grab that component and plug that in here. And so now whenever this ball changes, we'll check whether or not it's true. If it is true, we'll grab the Udon behavior from the parent, check if we managed to get it, and if we did get it, we'll tell the event add 1 to play. Then we'll come over here and instantiate our prefab and set its position and rotation to be the same as our parent object, which in our case is coin slot. And here I'll come over here where we need to disable the object, and to do so, first of all, we're going to grab the pickup component, then it's going to make us drop this pickup object before making it so that we can no longer pick up the object. And then second of all, it'll play the second arrow of the block node, and this will find our mesh renderer and disable it so that we'll no longer be able to see the coin. Awesome. So if we just hit compile and come back into our scene. So I'm going to go to my coin slot. I'm going to make sure it needs 3 objects because that's always good. And then I'm going to come into VRChat and then let's test this with 2 players so we can test out the networking. Okay, so now that we're in the world, we can see that when one player grabs the coin and puts it in, we can see both players see it. And then if the second player was to put it in, we can see the coin go in for them too. And then lastly, when the third coin goes in, we see it open for both players. And now you can play around with whatever cursed stuff's in your world. So anyways, hopefully you found this helpful. Feel free to leave a like if you liked it, leave a comment down below if you have any questions. Feel free to check out my Discord and Patreon in the description below. And don't forget to check out some of my other tutorials that I have on the channel. But until next time, bye!